Good afternoon. Thank you again for your interest in our collaborative summer enforcement strategy. This is part of our continuing efforts under the U.S. Attorney's Office Project Safe Neighborhood initiative, which is the centerpiece of the Department of Justice's violent crime reduction efforts. And through Project Safe Neighborhood, this office collaborates with our local, state, and federal partners to use evidence-based strategies to identify the drivers of violence, the most violent people, the most violent groups, and the most violent places. And we are here to announce our focused summer enforcement in the most violent places in Detroit. I want to emphasize, however, that this effort is in addition to the work we have already begun. Our federal prosecutors are in 5 precincts in Detroit, working collaboratively with ATF and FBI, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, and Detroit Police Department to triage cases and deal with the most violent people in those precincts and bring them to justice to reduce the violence in this great district, and particularly in its largest city. And so we are here to announce that, where I said that we are in the 4th, 8th, 9th, 11th, and 12th. And we are boots on the ground there, and we have seen the results. We have removed 2 killers from this district, from Detroit, by using this method, and we will continue to do that as we have done now and continue to do, and we will do it after this summer enforcement strategy. But with summer, as temperatures rise, so does violence. And so this summer enforcement strategy has already begun. It begun Memorial Day, and it will be continue through Labor Day. And what we know is that along with a few violent actors, there are also very small areas that contribute to most of the violence in our communities. Through the data, we have identified the most violent areas in Detroit, and they are sections in the 8th and the 9th precincts. In the 8th, on the west side, it's 8-4 and 8-8, which are bordered by Southfield Road, 8 Mile, Greenfield, and McNichols, or if you're from here, 6 Mile. And then on the east side, in the 9th precinct, it is 9-1 and 9-7, which borders include 8 Mile west of Hoover, 7 Mile, and Shaner Road. 9-7 is also bordered by Kelly Road, I-94, Whittier, and Kingsville Street. So federal agents from the ATF and FBI, along with the Detroit Police Department, will focus enforcement efforts in those 2 precincts because they lead the city in homicides and other violent crime. And although these hotspots have seen some reductions in 2021, the 8th precinct, and Chief White will talk about some of those reductions, it is not enough. And so we are focusing our attention this summer on those most violent places. What does that mean? What that means is that any felon arrested in those places for illegally possessing firearms will be prosecuted federally. And that means any individual who uses a firearm to commit a crime of violence or a drug trafficking offense will be considered for federal prosecution, along with any other arrests that involve violent crime. The U.S. Attorney's Office and the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office will collaborate to determine where those cases should be prosecuted. As I've said to many of you before, we are going for the most violent people, the most violent groups, and the most violent places. This summer enforcement strategy focused on that. And what we said is that our enforcement and our strategy is going to be focused, balanced, and fair. And I'm going to tell you how we've done some of that. If you want to know, we've engaged the community to tell their communities that we will be in these areas using this focused enforcement strategy. And we've enlisted them, and we have them up here with us, and they've committed to help us. We haven't asked them to help us to prosecute the cases. What we have asked them to tell the members of their community, put your guns down. Put your guns down, because if you don't, the feds are coming. We are coming, and we're going to arrest you, and I'm going to tell you what you're looking at. If you are arrested, you're a felon, and you are arrested for illegally possessing a gun. You will face up to 10 years in prison, and depending on your criminal record, it may be subject to enhancement. For federal sentences for carjacking and commercial robbery, robbery of businesses, for example, carry a penalty up to 20 years imprisonment. And possession of a firearm in furtherance of a drug trafficking crime or a crime of violence carry mandatory minimums of 5, 7, and 10 years. And if a machine gun is involved, a mandatory minimum of 30 years in prison. I said when I started this that we're going to be transparent. So we've been out in the community telling the community why we are focusing in these areas, because these two areas have been identified, these two precincts have been identified as the most violent areas. And so it's this focused enforcement, and the community understands. Those same flyers that you have in your possession, we have passed them out to the community. We have talked to the Detroit police commissioners. We have several of those representatives from those communities up here with us today, and they understand why we're here. And this is all part of our priority here, to rebuild community trust by being transparent about our enforcement actions and how we're going to carry out this, and to free them of this senseless violence so they can live, work, and play in the city that we all love, in the district that we all love. They are ready to take back their neighborhoods. I went to the 9th Precinct's Community Relations Council, and we have Miss Sandra Turner Handy here, who is the president of the 9th Precinct's Community Relations Council, and we have Mr. Elvin Stokes here, who is the president of the citywide Community Relations Councils, and they understand our purpose, and they embrace it and support it. And so this is part of our rebuilding our legitimacy in the community, and we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to do that. In addition to part of our efforts, as I've told many of you who have talked to me about my priorities, this is a collaborative effort between state, federal, local partners, and we will continue that even after the summer. But it's going to include punishment and prevention. And so we are going into these communities, in addition to having prosecutors who are designated to carry out the enforcement part, we also have some of our prosecutors there to talk to the community leaders and the community relation councils to identify the concerns of the community so that we can advocate for some resources to come into those communities, blight and other quality of life issues that we want to address. So in addition to the enforcement prosecutors that we have community federal prosecutors in there working collaboratively as well with the community relation councils and other community leaders in all of the precincts throughout Detroit. We are continuing our violent reduction crime area efforts in several other communities in this district. We have a Project Safe Neighborhood in Jackson, and they haven't experienced one homicide this year. We have a Project Safe Neighborhood in Saginaw, and I've been up there, and we're engaged with that community to address some of their concerns. And we've also focused on violent groups in Pontiac, 4 Block and R Block, and we've also talked to and collaborated with the sheriff there and the prosecutor Karen McDonough and Sheriff Bouchard and the mayor of Pontiac. So this is not to replace, but it is in addition to what we are already doing to improve the quality of lives of the citizens in this district. And community neighborhoods, and the community is ready to take their neighborhoods back. I know you've noticed the silence, the violence walks, the peace walks, the rallies that the community have been coming together to do. They're ready, and we're ready to join them, and we will. That is why, in addition to these enforcement efforts, as I mentioned, we will have resources coming into those. And in addition to that, in my whole effort to rebuild community, we're not going to bring enforcement, but we're also planning to do what I will refer to now as peace nicks in these areas. And that will include some fun information and resources for both young and old, and non-enforcement community engagement between law enforcement and the community. So this is a whole comprehensive, holistic approach. Enforcement, punishment, prevention, focused deterrence, and positive community engagement between law enforcement and the community. Our summer strategy has begun. We haven't arrested anyone, and if we don't, then that's a good thing. That means the message is getting out. But if they don't take heed, then we are prepared. We are boots on the ground, prepared to bring them to federal court, to rid them and give these communities some peace. So with that, I will turn it over to the mayor.
Well, thank you, Madam U.S. Attorney. This is a great day for some really important neighborhoods in the city of Detroit. And I want to thank you for, really, this is an unprecedented level of support from the U.S. Attorney's Office, the ATF, the FBI, the federal agencies to back us in this way. And I can tell you, it is deeply appreciated. Every morning when I wake up, the very first thing I do is pick up my cell phone and I log on to see the report from the police department the night before, the shootings that occurred. And most days, the day starts off with a feeling of sadness on what happened. As of today, we've had 320 people shot in the city of Detroit this year. Last year on June 6th, we had more than 420. We're down 25%. Those kinds of numbers get Chief White and me an invitation to the White House to share our strategies with other mayors. Weekly, there are police chiefs around the country coming to see us. But I have to tell you, it doesn't feel like us a celebration. We've had more than 100 of our residents murdered this year. And when you can have an 11-year-old girl in a home with her grandmother and 5 other children as young as the age of 7, dancing joyously in the house, and have a bullet come through and kill her, it hits you very hard. And it hits me personally, it hits the chief personally. We have great police officers who do a good job of solving cases, and DPD solved this case. But that doesn't bring this beautiful little girl back. We have to change it so people make different decisions. And what the U.S. Attorney is talking about here is putting enough strategy in place that people make different decisions. We don't have the shootings in the first place. When Chief White and I were at the White House, the mayors across the country said to the president and to the attorney general, federal government is not doing enough on urban gun crime. It has not traditionally been a focus of U.S. attorneys' offices and federal law enforcement. But with what's happening, we need these federal partners. The success that we have had here has been partnerships. County Executive Warren Evans, Prosecutor Kim Worthy, Judge Kinney at Circuit Court, Judge McConaughey at District Court. They've all worked together. And as we were in D.C., I was talking about the fact that in the Eastern District of Michigan, we've also had support. Started with Barb McQuaid, who started to help us. Matthew Schneider took it to a different level. Every single time we had a ceasefire call in where we brought in gang-related individuals to talk to him, he came out himself. But what you are seeing today with the U.S. Attorney here is the strongest initiative I've ever seen from the federal government to go after gun violence. And we are now going to get a chance. And this was a really unusual call, because when the U.S. Attorney called, she didn't say, give me more cops. She said, when we go in with our prosecutors into these precincts, I want to know the city services are going to be there. If we find a house they're dealing drugs out of, I want to know you're immediately going to seal it up. If we find a site that's overgrown with brush and dark, I want to know you're going to come out and deal with it. If we find an individual who's involved in gang activity who wants a job, I want to know you're going to be there. And so the new deputy mayor, Todd Bedison, is taking on that side of things. Every single referral we get from the federal teams for services in the city are going to go directly to Deputy Mayor Bedison, and he's going to follow up. And it is going to be, I think, a very interesting thing to see what happens when you layer the strength of the prosecution of the federal government with the Detroit Police Department and the support of the city services all together. We know we're talking about neighborhoods where you would expect a significant spike in gun violence this summer. But you've got cooperation from this U.S. Attorney's Office that I can tell you is the envy of mayors and police departments across the country, and we deeply appreciate it. And with that, I will introduce the man who's the most appreciative in this room, Police Chief James White.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, U.S. Attorney Dawn Eisen. Mayor's correct. I mean, this is the most unusually positive collaboration that I've been a part of in 26 years, and we could not be more grateful. Yes, we have had some success in non-fatal shootings and homicides, but the 8th and 9th precinct continue statistically to be higher than any precinct. Even with the reductions, they have more incidents than any precinct. So this type of collaboration is exactly what our community looks for and needs and is ready for. This Saturday, I had the privilege of attending a Stop the Violence rally of about 1,000 people, and they are fed up, they are tired, and they're ready to work with us, and they're looking for programs like this. And to get the call that I got from this U.S. Attorney is just amazing and exciting for us, because we need the help. We cannot do it alone. This is exactly what the type of collaboration looks like that we need. But when you look at numbers and you look at, yes, we've had 100 less people shot and about 13, 14 less murdered at the same time last year, that means absolutely nothing when you get a call that an 11-year-old in our city was murdered while attending a sleepover with her grandmother in our community on a spring night in Detroit, playing TikTok videos or making TikTok videos and laughing 1 minute and being shot in the back and murdered in our home the next. Just senseless. And we have worked that case, and I can't get into some of the details of it, but I will tell you this: irresponsible gun ownership, irresponsible use of a weapon. It is of epidemic proportions right now in our country and in our city. So I want to say thank you, U.S. Attorney, for this program. You have my full support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. And this is exactly what our community needs, and we're ready for it. And boots are already on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Please get the word out. We appreciate your time.